Hello, everybody, and welcome to Stop Being Polite, the podcast where we recap all things real world homecoming New Orleans. We are here on behalf of Silent Podcast, so we are anything but silent. And I am Katie, your host, and I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Kari. Kari, how are you doing today?
Good. I am podcasting from a new location this evening. I have now made my apartment a bi-coastal podcasting apartment. So I went from the north end of it to now in the south end, aka my Wi-Fi was acting up and the good Wi-Fi is out in the living room. But my roommate's always out here. No, and this isn't me complaining. This is like his home. So now that he's not here tonight, I'm stealing the good Wi-Fi for this. So, you know, just living large. I'm bi-coastal now, Katie.
Love it. Listen, it's not regret, it's reset, and you had to reset your Wi-Fi. So you did it. You did what had to be done.
It
you
still
did what
didn't
had to be done.
But
no, yeah, it didn't. I was there. I witnessed the whole thing. Well, we're here. Episode 7. We have one more left to go after this. This was a lighthearted episode, sort of, mostly. Yeah. How are you feeling about the season so far ending? I'm bummed. I'm gonna miss it.
Yeah, I just am scared that I'm gonna miss out on my regular interactions with Melissa on Twitter. Like, I feel like
I know you guys are becoming best friends.
She retweeted me today. I tagged you in the tweet, so like she retweeted us today. We really have to reach out. I would love to just be like, hey, we want to talk to you for like an hour, maybe hour and a half at most, and like 15 minutes of it will be real world, and then the rest, like, let's just talk. Like, she made like 3 Housewives references this week.
I know. Maybe we could talk to her about Housewives.
She said in that tweet she fell off, but we've watched enough. I mean, we have enough to talk about Housewives with her.
Yes, definitely. I also want to say, I know this is a very pro Melissa podcast, so this shouldn't come as a surprise, but I felt very influenced by her over the last few episodes because she's wearing this like oversized denim black shirt. And I'm like, I need that shirt. I want that shirt. I need it. And I just spent most of my time watching the first time I watched today, like Googling like oversized women denim shirt. And then I think it was on this podcast. I don't know if it was this podcast or the Real Housewives podcast where we talked about Stitch Fix. I think it was Real Housewives.
It was Real Housewives this week because we only had one episode to watch and we talked
and we went off the rails.
5 to 10 minutes about Stitch Fix because I've been doing it for like 7 or 8 years at this point.
Yes. Well, if you listen to that podcast, you will know that Nordstrom's Trunk Club is closing, which is Nordstrom's version of Stitch Fix, where they send you a box of clothes. And this week is their final box. So I ordered one for myself just to say goodbye. And they have her bag. Well, not her bag, but the bag that she said is basically the same bag that she has. It's like the new version of her little clutch bag. It's expensive as hell, but I got it put in my bag just so I can like, in my box, just so I can like see what it is like and like hold it. I'm not going to keep it, but I was like, this reminds me of Melissa, so I'm just going to like get it. So I could basically cosplay as her once I get this denim shirt and this bag. So maybe we shouldn't tell her this because it's creepy, but she's influencing me essentially.
You need the wig that she wore a couple episodes ago.
I do. So I need the wig. Just once I start wearing her glasses, that's when you need to intervene.
Okay. That's the line in the sand. Got it. I will definitely, I'll be a real one and let you know.
Yeah. Let me know when it gets like it crosses the line to creepy.
Gladly.
Yeah.
Calling out.
It's almost there. It's almost there.
Time, so
well, I'm definitely getting my creep on. So we're close. Well,
that's it. That's the podcast.
That's it. Have a great night.
Talk about being weird. Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, we can go ahead and jump into the episode. So we're at episode 7. The episode's name is It's Not Regret, It's Reset. We pick up with Melissa taking some ice cream into bed, which is a total mood. And Danny's laying outside listening to some bats, and he's saying he's terrified. And then Julie comes out, and we get the scene that we saw in the preview from last week, where she's telling Danny what happened with the playlist. She says she woke up to a super romantic text from her husband, giving her a hall pass, saying she could do whatever she wants. Do you find this romantic, Kari?
Absolutely
does this scream romance to you?
No. I never really want romance screamed at me, but this, if I were to be told that, like, I'm being so romantic right now. Oh, how? I'm letting you fuck any other guy that you want to. Like, what? What? So no, that was very perplexing to me.
Very. I really wasn't following Julie's train of thought here. She basically says, like, we don't have an open marriage. We've only been with each other. But, this is a super romantic gesture from Spencer because if you're not careful, then your marriage and monogamy can feel like a jail. And I'm like, Julie, I don't know what it is, where you're going with this, but this is like a bizarro take here. She's like, I want to read this text message out loud. She doesn't. Unfortunately, I don't get to hear what the actual wording is. But Danny in a confessional basically says, actually, this maybe isn't a confessional. This is just out to her, that this experience kind of triggered him into feeling this state of insecurity. Julie's like, he's not a jealous person. And he's like, well, obviously there's something about Jamie that makes him insecure. And they start talking a little bit about the playlists. And he's like, this is confirmation bias. He was looking for something and he found something. He's going to make it something, even if it's not. But, that's pretty much it. In the confessional, though, we do get from him saying, if he were in the same shoes as Spencer, he would be concerned. Because even though Jamie is very much married, feelings we have for each other don't just fade. And that's all I'm going to say about that was his quote.
I've thought about this in the 12 hours since I originally watched the episode. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess we kind of got a heads up on it in the preview. So maybe I have thought about it longer than that. In the fact that it's obviously easier, in my opinion, to disassociate by saying, you know what? I'm okay with this. If you're going to sleep with Jamie, I'm fine with this. Like, you are allowed to do it in this special instance, in this experience that you're having. However, obviously, I think the healthier thing is to kind of talk about this. And I do think Julie gets to a point where she realizes oh shit, I'm having this revelation about this whole situation. But to find it romantic in the moment, I think is also just her trying to avoid conflict within her marriage. Because if your significant other is saying no, it's okay that you go and do this intimate act with someone else, I'm fine with it. Shouldn't that be sending a whole bunch of questions to your head versus statements of, oh my God, the romance? So I think that it's her husband's way of protecting himself. Okay, if I'm just okay with it, it can't hurt me, versus if I have to find out when she comes home or when this airs on TV that she was messing around with him, then he has to deal with that, all of those emotions, whatever that may be. So that's my guess in how and why this all went down.
Yeah, it's weird. The whole thing is weird. Elon says, I would love to know how Jamie's wife's reaction to all of this. And me too, because to me, a lot of this feels like Julie is trying really hard to make very good television. We saw her talking about making good TV. She said to her husband in the hot tub, I would flirt with these guys, but I'm not into that. And then all of a sudden, everything starts happening with Jamie. So it's are you just trying to make good TV? Did Spencer actually offer you a hall pass? I don't understand. And I feel bad because it feels like Jamie, who's just being a big dope, is just walking around being used for the storyline that he probably has no actual idea he's being used for.
Do you think that if I go to this brunch on June 26th that Jamie is at, that I would be able to fit into conversation? So how did your wife feel about Julie? Because that is literally 80% of the motivation of why I want to go. Because I feel
it's a meet and greet, right?
To know. Yeah, I don't even know if it's a meet and greet. I think you might just be sitting at the tables eating with these people.
Then yes, you definitely can. It'll come up. Whether if you bring it up or someone else brings it up, it will come up.
Yeah, after this episode, I actually was I might have to go to this. I don't know if I really want to, but I might have to out of due diligence for this podcast. So, plus, I don't know. It's if we can get Jamie on here, I don't know how much we'd be able to talk to him about, but it would still be
I'm not that interested, to be completely honest. I mean, I would not say no, but it would be a struggle. I would be like, what are you playing on your Oculus all the time when we see you and laying flat down in bed with no shirt on, with these goggles on? That's really what I want to know. What are you always looking at? You're in your 40s. No judgment. It's just I mean, it sounded a little judgy, but what are we doing? all the time in
Is
VR.
it
Fun
like
enough.
a meditating thing? Isn't that what Julie asked him?
That's what it sounded like he said later on, which I was like, okay, maybe that makes more sense. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird.
You
He
brought up
feels very stuck in his youth to me.
yes, undisputedly. But I mean, like, he has kids now, so he gets to do it for a little bit longer. He just has to like make sure that they're also fed and bathed and go to school. But good on him for getting to do round 2 of that.
Yeah, for sure.
You brought up a point that has been an overarching point of this whole season for me, but really, really, really was driven home for me in this episode, which is Julie trying to create a TV show versus actually experiencing things.
Yeah.
I'm sure you noticed that in the like previously on part, they showed Julie again in the hot tub saying like, I took a bullet for this cast. I don't know how I can make better TV. And I guess my question for you is, do you think that MTV, Paramount, whoever is in charge of this at this point, is putting this in there to remind us of, hey, take Julie's actions with like a whole Morton can of salt? Like, or like, what do you think the purpose of including that in the preview, or not the previews, but like what's previously happened? Because there's nothing directly tied to that statement. Like, yeah, she's on the phone with her husband, but her getting blackout drunk and like her producing TV, it doesn't really like come up at all in this episode, except like, are Julie's actions genuine, or are Julie's actions her trying to make a TV show?
I thought that maybe it would have something to do with the conversation she has later in the episode with Kelley.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of. That's kind of where I was thinking, but you're right. There's nothing that's like truly tied to this snippet that we get in the previously on. So maybe there's more. I mean, next episode is the last episode. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but the preview doesn't look like it's going to be too dramatic at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's a good question.
Because I feel like we see parts of it in the fact of like, you're sitting down with Danny, who you've had your drama with already this this homecoming series, right? And telling him about this whole hall pass thing, and just her going to the confessional being like, oh, I wish like I should read this to you. Like, I feel like it's so hard at this point to really decipher her actions, that what is genuine, what isn't, because there have been moments, not many, like 5 or less, where it's like, oh shit, if this is actually you, then I at least like respect these small parts of you that we're getting, such as like, you didn't want to raise your daughter Mormon because of your experience being raised Mormon and all that, all those things, right? Like, but is that for the camera? Like, every single episode, it just more and more frustrates me in the fact of, I feel that the other 6 are not trying to make a TV show. If anything, like, and I'll get into this later, maybe some of them are holding back because they know they're on a TV show. But no one else feels like they're doing too much, where Julie obviously is, and I just don't know what's genuine isn't, and that is, it's frustrating. It frustrated me, especially this episode, and maybe it was because there wasn't any like real big Julie moments, that it was all smaller things. It's like, is this a real conversation, or is this you making TV? I don't know now. Like, I genuinely don't know, and I found that to be like incredibly annoying.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. It's hard, even in the moments where I'm saying like, oh, I'm not annoyed by Julie in this moment. I'm like, but is this really Julie? It's like, you have to question everything that you're seeing, where you're right. I don't feel like that with the other roommates.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I feel like this happens a lot in Housewives, where like storylines are manufactured, or they want us to think people are friends when they're not. And that's immediately when I feel like it's time to say goodbye to those housewives, because the whole goal of reality TV, especially with these casts from back before people were influencers and stuff like that. We just talked about how I was influenced to buy a bunch of things that Melissa owns. It's like we had really interesting people. And I know this comes up a lot with, especially in this podcast that we've talked about, like, you're casted because you're so interesting and you're compelling to watch, not because you're manufactured. Like, people, the casting people back in the early 2000s or in 90s, I feel like they could see through some of that, like, this person wants to be famous and just wants to make good TV because doesn't come across genuine, and that's not what they're going for, right? They're coming across, they want everything to come across genuine. So I can't imagine that the producers are like thrilled that Julie is sitting there being like, "Oh, I'm just trying to put on a show to make good TV."
Yeah, I wonder if like that's them clowning her by putting that
Yeah, I think it has to be, right?
in the like previous. I don't know. My dog is being so vocal right now. Sorry if you can hear him. But
It's
yeah,
okay. It's
I
okay.
do think that it has to be the producers kind of clowning on her.
Yeah, for sure.
All right,
Agreed.
we kind of took that, and by we I mean it was me. That was my fault. I kind of took that off the rails, but let's hinge it. Let's not be unhinged like
All right.
Julie, but let's hinge it back up.
Let's rehinge. So then we cut from this for a few minutes, and we go upstairs to the bedroom that we would want to also room in. And Kelly's like, "Oh, did you look at my Instagram?" And Melissa's like, "I did this," and she's like, and I quickly scrolled through her screen and was like, "Oh, she's still pretty," and then kind of kept it moving. And Kelley basically says, like, she credits Melissa that for keeping her kind of sane in this environment. And she's like, every morning I wake up wanting to leave. And then I look at Melissa and she kind of settles me down a little bit. And she's just very thankful to have her in this experience. And Melissa kind of gives a call back to something we'll talk about again later in the episode, but says that, they didn't connect very, very well back in the Belfort. But right now they're on parallel life tracks. They both have 3 kids. They both have cute husbands, and they both like skincare and laying in bed, except Kelley is a little bit outdoorsy, but we'll do away with that. So this kind of like lays the groundwork for the incoming message later.
Yeah. Melissa, of course, added stuff on Twitter about this, kind of like about components of this whole episode, saying that like, if you guys were such good friends, like, how come we didn't see more of you? And she was like, why would you want to watch like 2 40-something-year-old women sitting on their beds vibing? Like, we weren't doing anything.
I would want to watch it.
Yeah, obviously. But she was like, yeah, we got along so well. And that like they created a new friendship and everything. So she definitely added to that on Twitter and she wasn't like apologetic that we didn't get to see them bond more. But I think it was, I don't know, because like reading her tweets throughout the season, I've known that they've grown close. Like she said she only let Kelley use her like white linens and towels and stuff. No one else was allowed to. Like,
oh, that's funny.
Like trust anybody else and things like that. So but yeah, she said that they like hung out all the time, but it would just have been boring TV because it was the 2 of them sitting in their beds talking.
I agree to disagree, Melissa. I would have liked to have seen it. But yeah, I think, I think it's interesting now that they're connecting so well. I'm pretty low on Kelley this episode, I have to be honest. So it's hard for me to be like, oh, I love the storyline with Kelley, because it just feels like, I mean, we'll talk about it when we get to this point in the episode, but it's just a low Kelley episode for me personally. And I hate anybody that makes me feel like I should be on Julie's side, and Kelley kind of made me feel like I should be on Julie's side in some of the things this episode. So it's rough for me to have to deal with that. But I'm going to carry this burden throughout the podcast, and I'll defend myself if I have to. We do get Tokyo revealing that he was a bat mitzvah dancer, and we got a nice little dance from him. And Melissa asks why he didn't bring his keyboard, and she says that she's annoyed that they didn't have one in the house for him. And Jamie walks up and she's like, "What's the best part of every single Real World season of all time?" And he's like, and I'm like, this is definitely the wrong person to ask, because he's like so not in it. But he's like, I mean, it's the best part of our season, I guess. And she's like, no, of all time. And of course he says, come on, be my baby tonight. And we get a nice little flashback of our guy Elton. Can't believe we haven't gotten a scene with Elton. Maybe he's not local anymore, or they didn't think it was important enough to bring him on, but I wanted to see Elton. Maybe I'm the only one. But we get a flashback from their time on the show.
He walks in and is like, you're going to produce one more episode of the Real 7 of that 7 or
oh my God. I would love to see that. I would love to see that. I wonder, I mean, this is going to be very easy to find out, but we should do some research to see if the show is still, or not the show, but the channel is still existing, and what they've been up to.
Hopefully they are. We love public access television around here. Support
Yeah.
the little people.
Yeah. Shout out to public access. But at that time, Tokyo basically says, in this flashback, we see that the song was born out of introducing themselves for the Real Seven, the show that they produced, and everybody was agreeing to answer questions, but Tokyo wrote this song instead. He said at that point he wasn't connecting with his castmates. He was trying to be eclectic at the time, and this was really his way of showing himself and inviting them in to himself. But he got rejected very hard by them, which is sad. I mean, he's a very complicated person.
Yeah.
That this is obvious. He was then. He still is now, and I can see how this could have been his way for him to open up and feel vulnerable. And show a deeper side to himself, and maybe he felt like he would be able to explain himself more or show his true self more in that song versus answering some questions about like who he is, where he grew up, what his favorite book was.
Yeah, it's just kind of like the way that it was all presented, though. I mean, no one was really on good terms with him, especially Kelley was so annoyed by him, and she was the
Yeah.
director of that episode. And if he had like gone up and been like, "Hey, so what if I do this instead of that?"
Yeah.
And that really just came to like, this is what I did. And so there was a lot of conflict in the original version of it. And I could understand when, especially it's their first time as 20, like putting a TV show together as 20 something year olds, like, hey, by the way, you're
Absolutely.
responsible for doing this. And you have one person who was like, no, I'm not going to answer the questions, but instead I'm going to sing scat for 30 seconds. And
Yeah.
that's all about me.
Yeah, I think the whole I mean, they're all young people, right? At that point,
Right.
they were like between 20, 23, 24. They don't have the emotional maturity to really like dig in deep. And I think Tokyo at the time was a very deep person, but didn't really know how to express himself appropriately. I think he still kind of gets himself into that kind of area of himself sometimes, but maybe in a less or in a more positive way. Like I think he's thinking a little bit more positively. But they pretty much do an introspective of "Come on, Be My Baby Tonight" as a general, as just a pop culture moment. And he says this is his way of melding different styles and culture. Or Melissa says this rather, that this was his way of melding different styles and culture. But they were really thinking of it as an assignment, and he was not following the directions of the assignment, which I think is a perfect way to like, we were thinking about it this way. He was really trying to do this, and we just were not on the same level here.
Right. And it does seem cool in this moment, though, how it's not Tokyo coming in and being like, hey, remember that song that was so catchy that I made and really was symbolic from our season? And I even sang it on Dave Chappelle, but it's more Melissa being like, dude, this was the
Yeah.
moment. It was iconic. Like, people still know it. You were on Dave Chappelle doing this. Like, this represents not just our season, but the whole, like, she was really hyping
Yeah.
it up. And I think that's cool because, I mean, even they are obviously getting along better now than they did 22 years ago,
Yes.
but it could be very easy to look back on that. And I wouldn't say, and this isn't from like Melissa's perspective per se, but from any of their perspectives of, oh, like he got to go on the Chappelle show and do this song that caused us so much angst and drama and shit. And to have it be brought back up 22 years later, like I could see there being negative emotions tied to it. But I really think Melissa framed it in a way of like, no, this is great. And I can't believe that we're not getting more of this from you. Where is your keyboard? So I thought that was cool. And I think also will hopefully help lead to, in the last episode, get a little bit deeper with Tokyo, because we really haven't had too much deep Tokyo yet. Like we still are pretty surface level. I feel like at this point he's been the most under edited. We haven't really had too much. Like
Yeah.
we had his issue with Julie, but he had to be on the defensive for that. Like we really didn't get a ton. So I don't know. I'm hoping that the way that this whole experience, because I know he kind of organized them going and singing it, which we'll talk about, but like Melissa brought it up and was very positive about it, despite the fact that the rest of the house had a negative experience when it came to this song in their first experience with it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think we get a little bit more. I feel like I learned a lot about Tokyo even in this episode, and his experience with the song and his experience after the show. I agree. I would like to know more about him and his life and kind of like what is driving him now. And, I think we got a little bit of it, but I think we could definitely get more. I would like to get more.
Mhm.
But from this point, he says he went underground after the show for a few years. And I think Melissa agrees and kind of was like, yeah, we never really heard from you again. And he said it wasn't regret, it was reset, which is the name of the episode. Which it seemed like he really needed. So after that, we get a phone call of Julie with Spencer. And they're talking about the hall pass. And of course, Jamie walks in and has to get his Oculus or whatever. I think it's an Oculus. And it's kind of like, dude, every time she's on the phone with Spencer, Jamie is like right there. It's just very
Mhm.
weird. It's like, can you
Mhm.
there's nowhere else to go here. But again, she says, Spencer gave me a hall pass on national television. It's super romantic. What are we talking about here? This is not romantic. I mean, maybe it is for them. I don't know. It's just bizarre. There's
This
nothing wrong
is
with
right.
having an open relationship. It just feels very, I don't know, put on. It's like
Yeah,
it just
because
doesn't feel real to me.
this text message came in the middle of them being there, and it wasn't an in-depth conversation before she left. And Julie does bring it up as well, where she said her husband watched this season like a week before she left for homecoming. So
Yeah.
everything that she experienced 20 years ago and has had 2 decades to process, he's seeing for the first time. And then she's off to this guy that, I mean, it seems like she broke down every single fucking detail that she of her like sexcapades with. And now she's in a house with him, and he even saw like how they interacted when he came up for his fake conference, because throwing it out there that she was like, yeah, he came for a conference, and then when he's like, no, you need to go home, he was already home. I thought he was down there for a conference.
Yeah, I'm
Anyway,
confused. I'm confused.
yeah, that was definitely some production magic there. So
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, this is again one of the moments where I'm like, okay, Julie, we get it. Like, you're trying to make TV here, because none
Yeah.
of that seemed genuine.
Even the part where he says, he's jealous of Jamie because he gets to spend all day in paradise, but he's not with you, but he's not worried about something happening. I'm like, I don't know if I would call this paradise
New Orleans is
personally.
not paradise. They got some good food, but like,
Yeah, and like no shade to New Orleans. I don't think they were really allowed to do much outside of the house in general because of COVID
right,
being a risk. So I think they
right.
were really just in the house. But she does say this is, to your point, a product of Spencer just watching the episodes right before coming to the house. But to me, this is weird because they didn't know each other at the time. She was 20 years old and this was 22 years ago. Like, why are
Mhm.
you feeling weird about her making out with this guy on the stairs? And I guess, yeah, obviously she then told him, oh, he was the cause of my sexual revolution and I pop a finger in my post every time I think about him. I mean, I don't know if that's really where we went, but like it feels like maybe this is a little bit of an overreaction, unless that's kind of the story that she told.
Mhm. Um, this is the second week in a row that I'm low key mad at you for how you are
Hmm.
describing Julie's sexual actions. So thank
I
you
don't
for.
really know how else to describe it personally. I don't really know.
I'm still upset.
Mm,
So thank you for another sleepless night, Katie.
no problem. You could talk to Kelley about it. I think she has some of the same feelings.
Yeah. Oh, well. Okay. Like, we're too soon. We're gonna get there too soon.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there. So anyway, back to the hall pass. That probably never happened. So she tells him that the hall pass is unnecessary, but it's super sweet. And she would give him one too, but she knows he'd never use it. And I would never use mine. And like, there we go. And then we get a confessional. And she's like, oh my God, I can't be friends with Jamie. Even though like 3 episodes before, she's like, Jamie's like the most, I have my family, I have my friends, and I have Jamie. It's like he's like the top 3 category of the most important people in her life.
This part made me so mad for reasons I've already said. It's that, like,
Yes.
Julie, if you actually did just figure this out and this is a genuine reaction, good for you. Because honestly, I don't know what other, like, I don't want to say Jamie is competition, or I don't know, I have a better word for it. what other competition you have out in like rural Wisconsin for your husband, like that you would be sexually attracted to? Some cows, like I don't know what else is out there, right? Like
Cheese, right? Wisconsin.
yeah,
Yeah, cows.
those
That
cheese curds.
tracks.
I mean, cheese curds are good anyway.
Fair though. Cheese curds are
Have
great.
like especially fresh ones, and they like squeak. And okay, anyway, so this might be really her first instance of, oh shit, I am in a friendship that my husband is clearly uncomfortable with, and I have to make a decision of, do I continue to entertain this friendship, or do I be loyal, or like, do I respect what my husband wants? And so if this is actually what she did come to the conclusion to in this moment, good for her. I respect that. But so much of this season has just led me to not believe what is actually happening to be genuine. So it's like, I want to say good job with an asterisk. I hope she came to this conclusion, because I also felt uncomfortable, especially for like Jamie's wife and kids.
I feel the most uncomfortable for Jamie's wife and kids, and also Jamie to an extent, because I really don't feel like he understands how much this story was being manipulated by Julie behind the scenes. But like, here's the thing. Are they friends outside of this? I don't think that they are. Maybe now they're friendly. I would doubt it after watching this on TV. But beforehand, it's not like she was super close to him and now she has to say, like, I have to make this really hard decision to not be friends. You guys are in the house for 2 weeks. You're not making a life-changing decision. You weren't friends before and you're not going to be friends now. That's it. This isn't some monumental experience in your life where you need to say, oh my God, I can't be friends with him. I just can't. And she kind of even says this, right? She's like, the fantasy of having friends coming out of this has totally died, which obviously she was thinking Jamie would be her friend in that moment. It's just, I would feel bad if I were in Jamie's position and I was being manipulated and was put on this playlist and then it was made into a story because I was trying to reconnect with someone who I had a connection with 22 years ago, not realizing. And again, I don't know. This is an assumption. Maybe he knew and maybe this was more mutual than it seems. But it just I would feel really taken advantage of for television if this were me.
Yeah, with how much of the behind the scenes confessionals of, he's such an important person. Yeah, no, I definitely understand that. Shoot, there was a Jamie point I was going to make. Oh, so something that just kind of makes me question a lot of like the, oh, we're so close or whatever. Like clearly everyone had their shit with Tokyo that no one really like had much of a reason to stay in contact with him, even though him and Jamie, even if Tokyo lives on like the southest of the south side of Chicago and Jamie lives in the suburbs or north in the northest part of Chicago, right? That's like an hour drive. If Julie is up in Wisconsin, you can get to most parts of Wisconsin, like Chicago, Wisconsin, anywhere between an hour and like 3 to 4 hours at most in a car. That if that person was so important to you, then why is it taking 22 years to see each other? You know, like, especially at the point where like you both have kids and stuff, it's so easy to be like, hey, bring your family up to Cowland. Like, we'll make some cheese together and talk about non-Mormon things, like, you know, or whatever. Have Julie and her family come down. That it just strikes me as weird to be like, he's so important. And so, yeah, I agree that I think she's doing a lot. She's really like latched on to this whole like, he was my first this and that, and it's like, dude, I would like forget my first. I don't want to bring it up on national television 22 years later. Like, let's save us all some embarrassment. I have some integrity I would like to keep here.
Right. Also, like low key last week or whenever, maybe 2 weeks ago, Kelley was like, we all have that person that was like responsible for sexual. I'm like, do we? I mean, I don't know. I'm like, I don't have it, whatever. Not to make it about me, but I'm like,
leave me out of this one.
I'm like, I don't have someone that I hold in such a high regard that Julie holds Jamie. That's for sure. Like, this is not, I'm not trying to yuck anybody's yum, but this doesn't feel like someone, this doesn't feel like something everybody can relate to is all I'm trying to say here.
Yeah.
Anyway, so essentially she just leaves it off and saying, well, being a grown-up is having to end friendships that threaten your marriage. I'm like, I think it's your brain actually that's threatening your marriage, but whatever. Not Jamie. Then we get our incoming message, and it's about Kelley. This is the least interesting incoming message that I've seen so
Yes.
far.
Yes.
I mean, I thought it was interesting, and I thought a lot of what she shared was interesting, but it's kind of like we got a lot of nothing here because Kelley kind of gave us nothing in the original season, and she's kind of giving us nothing now. But it's basically about how Kelley didn't spend time in the house back in the day. What I did find interesting was the piece about her and Melissa, which we saw at the end of the original season, where Kelley's back in the house because Peter's going surfing in Indonesia and she's kind of forced to be in the house. And she and Melissa had a conversation, and Melissa was kind of like, yeah, I mean, like, we're acquaintances, but we're not going to be good friends. We don't know each other. And it sounds like we also got a really funny moment of Jamie. Kelley is talking about how Peter is a surfer, and in the flashback, Jamie does that like surfer thing with his hands, and then like in real time he did it, and he like kind of making fun of himself, and that made me laugh. But Kelley got the sense that Melissa didn't want to like her back in the day, and Melissa kind of says like, I felt like Kelley felt like I didn't like her, and Melissa was essentially saying, I don't really get along with girls like Kelley because Kelley seems to think that she's like the prize, and it made her and Julie feel like they were the ugly girls in the house. So yeah, she just says, they didn't really know each other. And that's pretty much where the friendship ended at that time. They didn't really connect too much back in the house. Kelley says that Melissa and Julie had a beautiful friendship back then, and she was just kind of circling around, and she put walls up. What did you think about this? I thought some of the things that Kelley shared, which obviously we'll get into, was interesting, but kind of what did you think about revisiting this Melissa Kelley moment?
I think they had to, because what else do you revisit when it comes to Kelley? She, like Melissa said, I think it was in a flashback, like for 3 months, she wasn't living in the house.
Yeah.
So you weren't going to get much out of her if you tried to focus the conversation on Peter. She's already shut down multiple times conversations about hooking up, which again, I've found hypocritical because she had instigated multiple conversations about who was hooking up. So I think it was interesting, especially in the fact of like, clearly they've developed a bond through this experience. And so then it kind of makes the two of them confront it, because I guess that my guess would be that maybe they hadn't. I could see Melissa being like, hey, so remember how like we really weren't cool? Now, oh my God, like we are taking pictures of each other and talking about our kids and all this shit. Like I could see it coming up, but like why bring up negative especially if Kelley is struggling so much through this experience, like why bring that up versus just like really emphasize the positive? So it forced something about Kelley to come up in this situation. But like you said, I think we found out things after the incoming message that connect a lot of dots for how things are going now in the house, how they were going 22 years in the house. And obviously hindsight's 2020, but you could say this about, I think, both her and Tokyo in a way of, if the two of you had just been open 22 years ago, like how different your experience could have been. Like, can you imagine her telling that story to Melissa and Julie 20 something years ago and then being like, oh, you probably deserved it, or like that's not happening.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
No,
like if anything, they're gonna be like, oh my God, let's have an eye out for this situation, or like, now that I know this makes sense, like the things that Melissa said after. So obviously when you're like 22 and in front of cameras the whole time and in an uncomfortable situation and all that, it can be tough to be vulnerable in front of literally millions of people. But we see little glimpses now that you see why Kelley was cast, and she had the opportunity to really like be a big role in the original season. And unfortunately, I feel like both are falling flat here, or like she's falling flat. She fell flat then, she's falling flat now, and she didn't have to in either instance, because in my opinion, she's also holding back now too, like very much so. So
yeah, I totally agree. I think it makes total sense that she and Melissa are close now. I think Kelley is probably a cool person. Like, I think I would probably like Kelley in real life. I just don't think she's really giving a ton on TV. And it seems like that's by design, right? So she talks a little bit about what, we're alluding to what happened to her as she was growing up. So it sounds like in her senior year of high school, I think high school, I'm assuming high school, I don't think it was college, that she talked about how she was bullied. They took it to another level. There were a number of girls who were slashing her tires. They egged her house. They spray painted bitch in front of her house. They hired girls to push her around in a circle and then spit on her. She had food thrown on her. She was never fully convinced that they weren't going to physically hurt her. And then Julie kind of is like, oh, so you have walls, like you put up walls with women. And Kelley says probably, but she didn't really realize that she was putting those walls up back then, which is totally understandable. And I think, especially at the young age, I think Kelley was 22 or 23 in the original season. It's still somewhat raw. I'm sure having this have just happened to her, and that's trauma. That she's not going to want to openly talk about trauma, especially having it be so fresh on national television. So it's understandable that she didn't talk about it with them. But it's unfortunate because you're right. I think they would have been more understanding and probably accepted her with more open arms. Not that they didn't accept her. I just don't think she made the effort, and I don't think they went out of their way to make the effort either.
Yeah. It's hard when the perspective is like, oh, she's the pretty girl, and when she really like probably felt intimidated by the other women.
Yeah.
Oh, I need to interrupt this for a second. Listen,
shout out to Josie.
Bitch, I've been having a mic the whole time. You just can't see it, but now I'm in the kitchen and I put it on a thing because I wanted to stand because the stool I was sitting on was hurting my butt so bad. So there's been a mic. I've been mic'd up with you the whole time, Josie. Anyway, sorry for derailing that. Yeah, that's right.
Shout out to Josie. We stan.
Yeah, we love her. She's great.
We do. A queen among us.
So yeah, I just think that it was hard. Okay. For me, it makes sense that she connected with Danny the most, not because like, oh, we're from like small Southern towns or whatever. But my opinion is she didn't want to connect with women because of her previous experiences. And I don't want to say like fear of women because that's not it. But like the negative trauma that she had.
She was closed off.
Right. And then someone like Kelley was also probably hit on left, right, and center by men. Totally. So who is the safest person in that house for her? It is the man who's not going to be sexually attracted to her. Like that is the safest space for her. To me, it makes so much sense now that like her and Danny instantly clicked. And I'm sure there's things about their personality, whatever, but she probably allowed him in more than other people because of feeling safer around him versus the other people that were in the house who had similarities to people who had wronged her before.
Yeah, for sure. I would totally get that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it makes sense. I think, Jamie comes in and says in a confessional that she seems like an icon of beauty and grace, which was very high praise. But the reality is that she's been through a lot and has been through problematic social relationships that still have an effect on her. And if you judge a book by its cover, then you wouldn't know that. So profound words from Jamie. But he is right. I mean, like we wouldn't know that. I feel like she even presented herself at the beginning of Homecoming like I was seen as like the sorority girl back then, but that really wasn't me. And that's what she said back in her casting, like I'm not the girly girl that, maybe I look like or people think I am. So it seems like she was trying to break that this whole time anyway. And Melissa points out that her reaction to Kelley not being in the house probably stirred up all of the rejection that she had felt from the other women in her life who had treated her this way at the time. So it was probably pushing her even further away, which was not the intent, obviously.
And I thought Matt brought up a really great point. So I don't know if I interrupted.
No, I was gonna go right into Matt.
Perfect. Where he made the comment of like, but you always act with such poise. Like, where does this poise come from? And she explains how it's a defense mechanism for her. Yep. And of all people to recognize that, for me, being Matt was very interesting. And maybe it's because we've seen them click a little bit in their experience in the Homecoming house that maybe he's connecting dots now too. But what did you think of Matt asking her about this poised defense mechanism that she has?
Yeah, I think he specifically said, like, how do you get to these difficult moments to like how poised and at peace you are right now?
Mhm.
Uh, and she points out that it's a defense mechanism. Part of me is like, this is just like another Matt-ism of just like saying things just to say things that don't mean anything. But the other part of me is kind of like, I feel like Matt has a lot buried inside of him as well that he probably struggles with. It sounded like
Mhm.
we scratched the very, very, very tip of the top of the surface last week, but I don't think we're going to get any deeper than that, especially with only one episode left. We didn't really have much Matt content this week. Um, I could see him probably seeing some similarities between the two of them,
Yeah.
just not obvious to the eye, obviously, because they are obviously very different people.
Yeah, for sure. Is that really all we get out of the Kelley segment?
That's
That's our
pretty much it.
big like Kelley like bomb is the in this
Hmm.
incoming message. I
That's
get
pretty much it.
I get it was a lot to for her to like come out and say these things, so I do appreciate that she opened up about it. Um it just kind of like I feel like we lost out on the possibility of like 1/7 of a better cast, you know? That and it's nothing like personal against her. There's nothing like bad about her. It's just you already did reality TV once, 20 something years ago. And to be honest, like really all that's changed is people can more easily access things about you because of
Hmm.
the ease of social media and the internet and stuff. And so to struggle like doing it for 2 weeks, it's just like a really confusing thing for me because she doesn't strike me as someone who has like anything to hide. It seems like she has enough people she likes in the house. Like really what her only tension is with Julie. And so
Hmm.
to really not be able to like connect with these other people and enjoy those 2 weeks because when are you, Melissa, and Danny gonna get to share a bedroom and kind of just like girls be girls it again? Not calling Danny a
Yeah.
girl, but you know what I mean. Like they really
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
liked I think Danny called there was a nickname for their bedroom and it had skank in it. Danny nicknamed it that, but I'll find it. So I don't know. It's just like I'm frustrated because I wish she got to like come into this with the right mindset to enjoy it. And it just feels like it was such a struggle for her. And I'm sorry that was a struggle for her, but also like why?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing for me. I understand that this probably can't be an easy decision to come back on reality TV, especially in this new era of like new to her social media. That wasn't a really a factor back then. The internet was still very new. There wasn't a Twitter, there wasn't Instagram, there wasn't Facebook, there
Mhm.
wasn't all of this other stuff, TikTok, anything, whatever, Reddit. Now all of these things exist, and you're under a microscope. We're sitting here talking about her. That wasn't happening 20 years ago. People weren't podcasting about it. So I understand the apprehension. But I think if you can't fully commit yourself to being a part of the experience, I get it's also really hard to say no to $200,000 for 2 weeks, probably a little
Mhm.
more than 2 weeks because of quarantine time. Then maybe you should just reevaluate. I don't think she would have been someone that they didn't have the homecoming over if she didn't join. You know what I mean? Like, I think, not to say that she's not a valuable part of the cast, but I think she was barely in the house in the original season.
I saw that is Giant Bananas season Key West, right?
Yes. Hmm.
That there's one person who won't sign off on their homecoming, so their homecoming won't happen. So I do wonder, like, do you know in the past there's been two other homecomings, right?
Yes, there's been New York and there's been LA. I didn't watch LA yet, but I know that the full cast, I don't believe, is there. I think that there are some people who didn't.
Okay, because I guess Bananas made it seem like um, they're gonna have a hard time doing their homecoming because someone won't sign on.
Interesting.
So I'm
That's
just
interesting.
wondering if they want a full cast or maybe they won't go to them until they cycle through some of the older seasons that will have a full cast come on or something like
Yeah.
that. So just I saw that this week somewhere, so I thought that was just worth
I'm
noting.
also like fine if we don't have more Johnny Bananas on TV.
Yeah, I'm
Okay
not so
with
much
me.
advocating for Bananas
No,
as
I
much
know.
as it is like I did see this piece of information in terms of like them wanting the full cast. So I wonder if that's true
Hmm.
for I wonder if that was a big reason we saw that Kelley was like one of the last two to sign on, her and Melissa. And you wonder if it's Danny being like, girl, come on. Like, we
Yeah,
can
I'm
get
sure Danny had a big,
$200,000 if you just come here for 2 weeks. Like, you're the last piece to the puzzle. So,
yeah, I'm sure Danny had a very big hand in getting Kelley to sign on. So after this, we go to the studio. I'm very excited about this part. I was excited when we saw it in the trailer. Tokyo made plans to go to the studio to re-record Come On Be My Baby Tonight, which I love that I'm sure production helped, but I love that he's owning this as his kind of event, and that he's open to doing this. He said that this song has always been for us, and he's always wanted the opportunity to do this, and he doesn't want this opportunity to pass him by, which I love. I just feel like he's so much more open to this experience now, and I love it.
Yeah, it's definitely a lighthearted part of the whole homecoming experience, and it seemed like everyone enjoyed it, and there wasn't like one single person who was kind of like shy away of it or anything, and everyone just seemed like happy that like, oh, this is cool, like we're doing this. And I thought Tokyo did such a good job of framing the song, and I don't know if this is what he meant it as then, but at least now he's like, this was for us, this was for the cast, and he just maybe couldn't express that 20 something years ago. And I just thought it was really cool how he framed it, like the fact that we kind of get to full circle on this, and this, I made this for us, and now all of us are singing it in this recording, and it was cool. I loved how he was kind of like narrating them what to do, like, okay, now whisper it.
I know, that was very cute.
Yeah,
very cute. On the way there, Julie kind of makes the point that a lot of people, well, I guess this isn't really on the way, but it's as we are traveling there. We get a confessional of Julie saying a lot of people go in the real world to become famous. And for Tokyo, it really just happened. And we get kind of a package of Tokyo talking about the last time he sang the song. It was on Chappelle's show. And Tokyo says that the experience was unbelievable, but afterward life was very different because as an introvert, it gave him a very newfound notoriety. That show, I don't think we can talk about how huge Chappelle's show was back then. I mean, it was like,
massive.
It was taking...
Everyone watched it.
Yes, it took the world by storm. It was huge. I remember this happening on the show. I mean, I just feel like there's nothing we can really compare right now to how big Chappelle's show was. Like, I don't feel like we've had anything since then that's been as big in the same vein.
No. Oh, sorry, Nitro. Sorry. I'm apologizing to my dog. He's laying like right at my feet, and I like kind of moved, and it caused him to push a chair, and he got scared. But him laying at my feet right now is so fucking cute. I took a couple pictures. He's like curled up on me. Anyway, no, I can't think of anything. Like, I think at one point maybe like Tosh.0 had a bit of a pull, but nothing like Chappelle's show. You know, like that. There's still skits that people quote to this day, and
all the time.
Yeah, that it was, there's very few things that had like the magnitude of, especially a show on like Comedy Central. It's not like it's Saturday Night Live, who's been around for years and has the opportunity to shake things up. Like this was something special. And so for Tokyo to go on there and sing that song, massive.
So he says, how do you not get taken advantage of in a world that wants to take as much out of you as it can and then throw you away? So it does feel like he had a lot of trouble. Just a very bright lightning. Just had a lot of trouble at that point, reaching that peak of fame and then sorting through it, navigating through it. So we get a confessional of Melissa saying, bitch, let me tell you something. We have Tokyo to thank for every reality star getting into a studio. And she says, we would not have a Countess Luann with Money Can't Buy Me class. You could not be tardy for the party if you didn't have Come On Be My Baby Tonight. And I say I agree. I think Melissa's absolutely right. Tokyo paved the way for these women who we also talk about on a weekly basis, who I love some of them like my family, my problematic family. Not all of them. Not necessarily the two that were just named, but some of them. So I love this little crossover. But yeah, I think she's right.
Yeah, we unfortunately have tardy for the party and cabaret star Luann, thanks to Tokyo. Thank you for nothing, Tokyo. No,
well, listen, Luann's music catalog they're a bunch of bops. I will say, Money Can't Buy You Class and Chic C'est La Vie are two. Feeling Giovanni. I mean, she has a pretty extensive catalog of hits. I will say.
I hope that Tokyo is getting royalties on these. Then
I hope so too. I would
I'm
love
sure
that.
he isn't, but no,
No, he's definitely not.
I've said
Candy
it
Burst
once.
isn't even getting paid.
I know she couldn't get money out of her own friend. I don't think that
No.
Luann is paying Tokyo at any means. I do just want to put it out there again that I saw 3 separate Real Housewives mentions from Melissa on this one episode alone. My favorite is when she's taking the fan and she's like,
Yeah.
"Oh no!" And someone's saying when someone says something you don't like, you flap the fan out like this.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
to Jamie, she's like, "Clearly you don't watch enough Housewives."
Yes. Jamie, get on it. Start watching. Melissa knows what's up.
Speaking of Jamie, my favorite line from this episode happened in the "Come on, Be My Baby Tonight" part by him when at the
I have it
end,
written down. I know exactly what you're going to say.
he's like, "This is so great. Like, thank you so much." He's like, "Tokyo, we love you so much. You might like us."
Yeah. Yeah. I think he said you at least like us. I think, let me see what I wrote. Well, we'll get there. Yeah. But yeah, that was very funny. Jamie does have some good one-liners on occasion. That's pretty much his contribution.
Yeah, he doesn't have much depth. That and that dumb yellow hat he was wearing. He looks like he was straight out of the mask.
I also wrote what the fuck is Jamie's yellow hat in my notes, because like literally what the fuck is that?
It looks like he was on The Mask. He was like Jim Carrey's understudy in The Mask.
Yeah, it does look like that. It does. But yeah, I mean, Melissa goes on and just says, you unknowingly provided this iconic moment for the season. And then he says, and then Dave Chappelle came and it made that a problem. So I'm really interested that we're getting this other side of this song from Tokyo. I don't feel like, Melissa says this is the first time Tokyo has used these words. I'm interested to hear more about his experience with this song, because Come On Be My Baby Tonight has been a cultural moment for me as someone who grew up on the show and loved this season. Yeah, he says it became his own animal and it became something bigger. And what happened at the time hurt Tokyo. And Danny says when Tokyo did Chappelle Show back in the day, this is probably the first time he didn't feel like he was being laughed with. He was being laughed at. And that is the moment when Tokyo took David Broom and buried him and erased it all and then decided to move forward. And Julie actually says something like, now you can reclaim it. And I was like, I hope that he does reclaim it. And I hope that this is a positive experience from the song that he can take into a positive direction. And I hope that everybody embraces him and embraces the song and isn't laughing at him, because the roommates finally get to share in this experience together. And it's very sweet.
And it makes sense with what he was saying of like, this was meant for us. And obviously he allowed it to be used on Chappelle's Show because he sang it. It's not like Chappelle was there singing it. So there was an agreement to it. But I'm sure that like in the moment or soon thereafter, he kind of realized like, no, this isn't true to what I wanted it to be. So I'm glad that he got to do this. I have been singing this song all day, all day. I find myself, I'm in this certification class right now, and you have to do a lot of like building on a software or whatever. And I'm like 6 steps in, and I just kind of like feel myself bopping back and forth. I'm like, there's no music on. And I realize it's because I woke up this morning at 6:30 and the first music I concerned was Come On Be My Baby Tonight. And so it's just drilled in there like any other Tokyo song. This one isn't about food, so I'm not talking about like cutting up apples or anything, but this has just been stuck all day.
Yeah, he has a gift, truly. And Melissa says this a little bit later. She's like, this is what you should be leaning into. And he says to himself, he says, I turned this part of myself off, but my fingers are like this. And he puts his fingers up and he's like, but this is for the roommates. And, we get a little, it is a cute moment, but it's a sad moment because he is extremely talented. He sits down at that piano and he picks right up, and he says he hasn't played the song in 20 years since Chappelle's Show, and he picks right up and he remembers everything about it, and he sounds great. His voice is great. I would love some Tokyo music. Specifically, I've been asking for the album of cooking songs since the beginning. I want them all. But I just love this. I love that the cast was singing along. I loved what you mentioned before, where he's like, okay, now whisper, and like you come in, and then he's directing them. It's a very sweet, wholesome moment from the show where it hasn't always been so wholesome this season. There's been some tough moments. So I like that they could come together and all be together and do this.
I agree. Put it on iTunes or something so I can buy it. Thanks in advance.
Yes.
Melissa was advocating for that via a Twitter poll today.
Oh, amazing. I hope she can convince him to put it up somewhere so we can consume it and he can get some royalties from it, because this man deserves to get paid.
Yes.
Melissa does say the icon jumped out when he's directing and singing. It's just he sounds great. She says that this is the first time she's seen a genuine smile from him. And why did he put this away? This is what he should be leaning into. And this is when Jamie says, "I love you, and I think you at least like us," which is very funny.
I do wonder if it's true. Not saying that any lies are being told, but how I interpret it is that he hasn't even like played the keyboard since. Because he made a comment like, my fingers are like, oh, what are you doing? But I guess it could be like for that specific song.
Yeah, I'm
sure that he used the keyboard for the other music that he's made. So maybe it's okay. This makes more sense now. I'm just saying it out loud. That it was probably about playing that specific like those chords for that song in that. Yeah. Okay. Forget I said anything.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it could be, Melissa does ask earlier, why didn't you bring the keyboard? And he says that thing weighs 2 tons. I don't know. He doesn't say, I haven't played it anymore. I'm not playing it.
Is a very
that's not true.
Keyboard.
That's definitely not true, by the way. It does not weigh 2 tons. That's for sure. From there, we just get Tokyo. This is pretty much where it ends here, but we get Tokyo just saying it feels good to have everyone there and be having a good time and to be laughing and smiling. When he created this before, it was really just for them and only them. And now they get their moment back. So I love that. And I love that he had a good time with it and enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm glad that something that was such a negative in the original season is such a positive in this homecoming season.
Yes, absolutely. Then we're going to take a quick left turn, because we're sitting outside and Jamie's putting on his VR headset again, getting ready to meditate. And Julie sits down. She's like, "Oh, are you meditating?" And he's like, "No, but you can talk." And she gets on the phone with Spencer and she's like, "So you sent me naked pictures today?" And he's just like, "I'm going to go stand over there and listen to music." And because she's starting to talk about how horny she is. And I'm just like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Go somewhere private and have this conversation.
Producer Julie at it again. She shouldn't be sitting in one of, do you call it a chase, whatever they were sitting on, that like long?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, if I'm right about that, that's crazy.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right.
Okay, cool. Like, don't give her that chair to sit on. Give her one of those producer chairs, like the wooden ones that fold up with the cloth seat.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's what she's doing here. And it is such like juvenile behavior of like, oh, I'm going to talk to another boy in front of the boy I like so that
she wants attention.
Oh my, this drove me up a wall. And if I was Jamie at how he manages to just be like, oh, I'm just going to go listen to music in the corner, not right here next to you while you're basically having phone sex with your husband, and not be like, are you fucking kidding me?
Like, right. Valencia says that was on purpose, and I agree. It was definitely on purpose. She wanted a reaction from Jamie. She got one. He walked away, which is what he should have done. I mean, this is just weird. And then we get into a conversation about Julie and her sex talk, and she starts sharing pictures of her husband to Kelley. I'm unclear if these were the naked pictures. I don't think that they were, but it seems like they're provocative shirtless pictures is what I'm gathering from the conversation, but I don't know.
Yeah, Reddit was like, I don't know if this was just like shirtless or like we saw boner too. But I feel like there would have been more of a reaction if it was the second one, because it wasn't actually, okay, tell me if I'm wrong, because I didn't write notes on this. I just watched it twice. I thought that it was someone else. Was it Jamie? Was it Danny? who
Who said to
encouraged
show?
her.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't even like Julie being like, "Hey Kelley, look at my hot husband." It was one of the guys being like, "Oh, show Kelley."
Yes, it was. It was one of the guys. I don't remember if it was Danny or Jamie, but it was one of those two. And she does, and Kelly's like, "Oh, what are you showing me? Boundaries." And she gets like very like Valencia says, "Didn't I say that she seems stunted?" And she absolutely seems stunted to me. I feel like she's stuck in, I don't know if it's the 20-year-old that she was on the show. Valencia says she keeps saying that she's acting like she's 16, and she absolutely is. It just feels like truly her maturity has been completely stunted. But Kelley kind of goes, I don't want to say over the top, because boundaries are important and we should respect everybody's boundaries. But if it is just a picture of a shirtless man, let's chill. It's really not that serious. It's not like, anything super offensive. I can if it's a naked picture or a picture with boners in it, then I understand more the reaction. But if it really is just a shirtless picture and you're among friends and your friend Danny is like, show Kelley, I don't know that it's that big of a deal. And this is where I'm like, is Kelley really right?
They were in the hot tub. She's seen it already.
Yeah. Yeah. This is why like 2 + 2 isn't equaling 4 here for me.
As my good old friend Josie says, the math isn't mathing.
The math is not mathing here for this reaction. And that's why I'm like, it bothers me that I'm being forced to be a little bit on Julie's side here. I'm not on Julie's side. I think the scene right before this, where she's outside talking to Jamie, is weird as hell. I think Julie is weird as hell. But this part, I'm kind of like, this isn't really that big of a deal. We do see a scene earlier on in the season, and I guess it all just goes to it's all aligned with the relationship, I guess, that you have with the person, right? She doesn't have this relationship with Julie, so she doesn't want to have these conversations. But Melissa is handing her phone and showing her pictures of her kids. And she's like, "Oh, don't scroll. Me and my husband are doing things. And that, we're away from each other. We're doing stuff." Kelley's not like, "Oh, get this phone away. Boundaries." And it feels like if Julie said that, she would have a freak out moment. But it's because she's in a good place with Melissa and she likes Melissa and they're on the same level. She's not offended by that.
I'm so glad you're bringing this up, because this was one of the big points that I wanted to make with this episode, is that Danny has said some provocative shit throughout this whole season, and she has never once sat Danny down and been like, there are boundaries. You can't talk about Tokyo hooking up with a daughter and mom in front of me, because
she did walk away in that conversation.
Yeah, but like, she didn't scold him. No. Like, Danny has said some shit, and Julie is being held to a different standard. And I get, like, we don't like Julie. It's easier to be annoyed with Julie, but I really think she's projecting things with Julie, because there's been other stuff that she has either instigated herself or has been a part of the conversation that she's been totally fine with. But when it comes to Julie, it's not okay. And what I really think it comes down to, and I like alluded to this before, is it really does feel like on the top of her mind is, I have kids and a husband who are going to watch this, and I don't want my kids to be able to go on Paramount Plus in 6, 7, 8 years when they're old enough to go and watch me talk about porn with Julie on TV. Yeah. And that's really what it feels like. And I just wish she would fucking say it. Just say, like, I mean, Matt kind of owns it in a way with his like religion stuff, at least, where he's like, I'm not comfortable with this. Where like, there's a lot of things with Kelley in all of this that are just like, you are picking and choosing your boundaries, and it doesn't seem fair to the whole situation. Like, I don't want to say I feel bad for Julie in this, but it does seem like Julie is held to be wrong much more than anybody else in that house by Kelley.
I agree. And I think everybody in this house so far has been put in more uncomfortable situations just talking about things that happened in the past, or their viewpoints on things, or experiences that they've had to go through, or to a way to hold people accountable, like Melissa and Tokyo had to do with Julie. And Kelley has had to do none of that. So for her to be the one who's like, I'm going to run out the door when really things have not been tough for her. I don't want to say like how she's handling it mentally, but optically, she hasn't had to deal with a lot of these difficult situations that everybody else in the house, even Matt to an extent, he got held account, sort of almost held accountable or questioned about some of the homophobic and terrible viewpoints that he and his church hold and that he's had and said vocally in the past and may still hold today. None of that has had to happen to Kelley. All she's had to deal with is being in the room where Julie's like talking about porn or sex or hooking up. And this is enough to make her want to leave. I don't understand it.
I think Julie is the scapegoat for Kelley.
Yeah.
And it's easier to blame Julie for Julie's actions than for her to sit there and say what I think would be true, which would be, I'm uncomfortable having conversations on camera that my kids can go back and watch later. I currently am not like mentally handling all of this well. And if she were to like say those two things, I do think that it could be a better experience for her, but instead it just feels like, oh, anytime that Julie, like it just feels like Julie is receiving the projection of Kelley's qualms and unhappiness about being here.
Yeah, I agree. I think the one thing that I will afford Kelley is that because she overheard the conversation that Julie had in the hot tub about making good TV, I can understand her feeling manipulated or like baited into some of these conversations. Whereas if she's having these conversations with the other roommates who she has a better relationship with, they're more genuine and it doesn't feel like she's forced into an uncomfortable situation. But at the same time, I don't think anything that Julie is saying is so bad. I mean, we do get a clip of her talking about like, who do you think masturbated more in quarantine, which is like, Kelley's like, I don't need to be a part of this, which like, I don't care. Again, how many times are you going to pop a finger in your puss? I don't care. I don't need to know about it. Keep it to yourself. I'm not.
You were just looking for an excuse to say that again. I know
was. Listen, she brings it up. Okay. Well, I have to report on the facts here. Doing my job. But, you know, I just, I don't need to know that. I don't need you to be comparing it to other people in the house. But if she's sitting there with Danny and was it Jamie in the back talking about porn, like that, I don't care about that. That doesn't bother me. Like, why do I care? Do you need to get up and excuse yourself? Is that really going to make the show? No, the reason it made the show is because you got up and walked away. Now they have to use it as an example. That's the reason it's on the show.
But like with the tarot cards, she said in front of everyone, like, yeah, I am good in bed. Okay, so like,
true.
Is it okay that kids see that? I don't know. I don't want any of them to be as uncomfortable as Kelley is, but I just wish that like, the biggest reason that I wish she wasn't like projecting at Julie is I just want less of Julie. You know, like that's it's not even I feel bad for Julie. Like pick a different way of projecting so that we don't have to deal with more of her, because Julie's obviously going to turn around and make it seem like she's the victim here. Not that Kelley is a victim, but like, I can't I'm just trying to live my life, blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't know.
Yes.
Why Agreed. Does it have to be with Julie?
Yeah, we don't need to be doing this. We can just, and at this point, it's like, how many days are left? I don't know. Julie, though, and Kelley have a conversation. Kelley is like, a lot, this says a lot and it's uncomfortable. And I just need to have a conversation with Julie about this. So she approaches Julie, they go outside and they sit down. And she just tells Julie that she has an uneasy feeling over the last few days and feels like she's in this fight or flight or freeze mode. And after processing what she's feeling, she goes on to say, like, you know, I'm really happy for your sexual revolution and I'm happy that you found all of these things, but she doesn't want to feel baited into conversations that are inappropriate. And that's when we get the clip of Kelley leaving when they're talking about porn. Doesn't want to be shown a photo of Julie's husband in a state, she said. I think if I were Julie, and this is where I'm annoyed at Kelley because I don't want to have to defend Julie here, I would be blindsided, I think, by this conversation, and I would be embarrassed.
Yeah. Because the other thing is, like, this is coming out of almost nowhere. I think we can tell that like Kelley has been uncomfortable, but I feel like in almost every other instance of issues Julie has had this season, Julie at least is aware of what she's done wrong, or like that people are upset with her, where Kelley's just like, this is it. I have to go talk to her. And I mean, if I was Julie, I would also be like, wait, what? And especially because Kelley in this conversation says, like, I make salty jokes. Like, I can have a laugh and things like that. But it's like she won't, it's not okay to do it with Julie because she doesn't have the same relationship with Julie that at least she's implying that she doesn't have the same relationship with Julie that she does with her other friends, and that she would talk about this stuff with. But she's talked about this other stuff with other people in the house. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I've ever felt that like Julie has baited her in any of these conversations. Do you feel that way?
No, I don't really feel that way. I don't feel like she has approached Kelley specifically about any of these conversations. If anybody should feel baited, it's Jamie.
Yeah.
But I don't feel that way. No, I don't. And maybe there are things that we haven't seen.
Right.
But I do think this was a little bit of a stretch from Kelley. And I think this is probably coming from her overhearing what Julie was saying in the hot tub to her husband. And that's why she feels maybe like every conversation she's having is being baited, which is fair. That is fair, I think.
I did not connect those dots, even though I've been saying it. Nitro, I know. You're mad that Kelley isn't bringing it either. It's okay. I've been saying this whole producing thing the whole time, and I never connected it to Kelley thinking that. That is a great point.
Yeah. That's kind of why I think we got that clip in the beginning. But it doesn't feel like we get that confirmation from Kelley that that's what she's talking about. Yeah. But we do get Julie then saying she has an expectation of her coming in as a Mormon, and now she's not what she expected. She feels like she's able to talk about all these things with her friends, and she's trying to have this experience for herself now. And everybody else in the house is very reserved, and she's kind of just like being herself. I don't disagree with Julie here. If Julie's being genuine, I don't disagree with her. I think she gets held to a little bit of a different standard. Even Matt says, like, I didn't expect Julie to come in talking about fuck buddies, but Matt would never say fuck buddies because that's against his religion. He, he sat and just put his head in his hands and had a mini panic. But he has talked to us about how he's surprised by Julie. He wants to meet her husband and see what her husband is like because he's so shocked by who Julie is these days. It's like everybody is very surprised that Julie is who Julie is now. So if Julie is being genuine, and that's a big if because we just never can tell, I don't disagree with her here. If this is how she acts in her real life, she's just being herself, and it's making Kelley feel uncomfortable. But to me, that's a little more of a Kelley thing, the same way that it's a Matt thing.
Right.
We keep saying that this is on Matt. This is Matt's beliefs. He's reserved. He needs to deal with it. Same thing for Kelley, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's not like Julie walked up to her and was like, Kelley, why do you walk away anytime I bring up something that might be like it's not that. And I'm just kind of like frustrated by it because I do think that in this instance, Julie is like, we have to defend her. And
I don't want to, right. Kelley. I don't want to.
Kelley, just
you're making us.
You just don't want your kids to see this. Like, it's fine.
It's totally fine. It's totally fine.
Just don't get Paramount Plus. Like, it just don't. That's it. That's the only way they'd see it.
Right. Julie goes on to say she's being blamed for trying to make TV, but everyone else is only showing, and I think she has a point here, is only showing their best selves. So she's saying, you guys are blaming me for manipulating, but you're also manipulating because you're only showing one side of yourself, where Julie is saying, I'm being my full self, which I don't believe. I think she is being extremely extra. But she's saying to Kelley, you're only showing one part of yourself. So you're not being who you actually are either, which I'm kind of like, she kind of has a point. She kind of has a point. Eric says Julie certainly isn't showing her best self, and no, she is not. That is for sure.
I think she thinks she is.
That is for sure. I don't know what she thinks she is. I think she thinks she's making good TV, which, I mean, we're watching, we're talking about it, but she's in horror, mostly. We're mostly watching in horror. But Kelley says, if you come to me to talk about things, then I'm forced to talk about it, which means she's forced to talk about it on TV. And Kelley doesn't want to have these conversations on TV. Yeah. There are two different sides of this spectrum here of Julie wants to put everything out there and wants to make good TV and manipulate and make viral moments and be the talk of whatever. Kelley just wants to collect her check, be respectable, be respected, only show one side of herself and not get in the mess with everybody else. And it's just there's no middle ground. You know who's the middle ground? Melissa, Tokyo, Danny, the people who are having the tough conversations, holding themselves in the best light because they're good people and we can see who their true selves are, but they're not going out of their way to make good television. It's like they're all meeting in the middle, and then we get the Matts and the Kelleys over here, we get the Julies over here, and it's just, and Jamie is, I don't know, off somewhere, floating around somewhere.
Jamie's playing VR,
not really knowing where he is, or he's in the. I almost said metaverse, and now I just said it. I didn't want to say it, but I couldn't think of anything else. Yeah, he's in the metaverse somewhere, meditating. Valencia says we are really fighting the urge to be on Julie's side, and I am fighting the urge to be on Julie's side. I am. Hello to my cat, just walked in. But that's pretty much where we are with Kelley and Julie. She feels Kelley is being calculated. Julie's really just trying to have an experience and says they're probably not going to be best friends after the show, which is realistic from Julie. They are probably not. But Kelley goes on to say, well, we don't know that. And it's like, Kelley, she's giving you an out here and saying, I know we're not going to be friends after the show. And she's like, but you don't know. It's like, do you want to be friends with this woman or not?
Well, it's just,
she's saying we're not going to be friends. And you should be like, yeah, you're right. We're probably not. We're probably
Kelley
not.
Continuing to like try and take the high road and like the moral high ground, I guess, in terms of like, I'm not comfortable with these sex talks and like, well, there's still a chance we could be friends. Like, Kelley, just own it.
No, you guys are different people.
Oh my God.
Fine.
Am I like Lisa Rinna right now? Is that who says it? Just own it.
No. Yes, it is who says it, but you're not. You're never going to be like Lisa Rinna, I promise you.
No. Just in this moment. And I will be mad if you don't thank me the next time I give you bolognese sauce. But otherwise, no overlap.
Well, I'm not going to thank you because I don't eat meat. So I'll be like, I don't eat meat. I don't know why you gave this to me. But any other sauce I will thank you for.
Okay.
Yeah. But then Kelley kind of just like goes, I have to pee. It's not me shutting down the conversation, but I really have to go to the bathroom. And she gets up and she leaves the conversation.
Yes.
And
like
Julie walked upstairs. That was it. And it's kind of like, if you really had to go to the bathroom, you could just be like, just hang out here for like 1 second. I just really have to pee. I will be right back. And then we'll finish because I want to finish this conversation with you. But she's like, this isn't me turtling and running. I just really have to go to the bathroom. And then the conversation ends. And Julie is like, this is now where I'm like anti-Julie because she's like, this is what my grandma does.
Yeah.
Kelley, grandma. And I'm like, she's really like basically the same age as you. I understand she's talking about like attitude, but like, let's relax with the grandma.
This is an old person. Fuck you is what she said.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Which like, let's chill with calling Kelley old. Okay. She's not. No one in this house is old. Let's relax. And that's where we leave it with the two of them. So it's pretty unresolved. It just feels like to me, Kelley really took this as an opportunity to dump her feelings onto Julie and then shut Julie down when Julie was like, well, here's where I'm coming from. And again, I don't like to defend Julie. I don't think I'm defending Julie here. I think I'm just saying I don't think what Kelley did was like the best.
Yeah.
But I apologize for even towing the line of defending Julie.
Yeah, to our one Reddit listener who says that I defend Julie. In this instance, I'm coming.
Yeah, we apologize. Okay.
Yeah, actually, I'm not apologizing for shit. I didn't defend Julie that time before. You just misinterpreted me.
No, you definitely not that time. No, this time we're close.
Yeah.
All we're saying is that she made some good points. Okay, that's it. Then we get a clip of Melissa talking to Julie saying, "You don't need fashion. Your stomach is flat," which is very funny to me.
Yeah.
And then we're going to fancy brunch. So Danny says to wear your swankiest attire. And I want to know, why didn't Julie break out the gown?
Is that swanky or formal? I don't even remember what she wore. I just know that she was like at the end of the breakfast or brunch, she was like, "This was worth getting dressed up for," and I didn't even look what she was wearing. I just assumed she wasn't.
She was
wearing
literally
leggings.
wearing a jersey dress. No, she wasn't. She was wearing a hot pink jersey dress made out of jersey material, like t-shirt material. And she shows a kitten wedge heel to Melissa, and Melissa goes, "A kitten wedge?" And she says, "Is it not cute?" And Melissa goes, and never answers. But she did post about it in her Instagram story.
Yeah, Melissa went off on a tweet about it. So
I didn't see it the first time I watched. I saw it the second time. I mean, I heard her say a kitten wedge, and I went, "Ooh, kitten heel," because like, oh no, don't wear a kitten heel, anybody, please. They're not cute. They don't look good. They do not look good. Kitten heels do not look good. A kitten wedge, definitely not cute. And then it's just very funny that Melissa just continued to talk about why a kitten wedge is not it. And agreed. Just wear flats and be comfortable is what she says. And that is what Julie did. She ended up wearing sandals. Everybody's not really that dressed up.
No.
They're like in relatively casual clothes. So I don't know. It was kind of strange.
To be fair, I wonder, I mean, with COVID and shit, how much they thought they'd even be going out in the first place. If in that instance, I mean, like, I don't want to say it's post-COVID, but we are hopefully inching closer to post-COVID. And I still have only worn jeans like a handful of times outside of work in like the last 3 years. So I get it. I would have packed all of my sweatpants too.
No, it's fair. It's fair. Plus, she's probably got like some kind of contractual obligation to LuLaRoe to like wear the leggings multiple times on screen. I don't know.
Here's your once an episode MLM shout out. Anyway.
Yeah. Yes. So on the way to brunch, they see a parade getting ready or people in costumes and floats and stuff. And first they're like, "Oh, this is definitely for us." And I'm like, "Why do they think that?" But then I realize, oh, they're literally right outside of their house and they're all getting COVID tested and stuff. Like it's obviously for them. They're getting set up for filming and they're going through probably like all the pre-production stuff. So Julie's excited. This is also going to be me not necessarily defending Julie, but not agreeing with Kelley. Kelley's like, "Oh, I hate this stuff. Like, I'm a party pooper. I hate this." It's like, can you just chill?
You didn't have to say that out loud.
Yeah, keep it in. Just keep it in. I hate that stuff too. Okay, I hate it too. But you're on a show. Production's gonna do stuff for you. Just be like, okay, this is just one day. It's literally one day of your life. It's one day. Just deal with it. You're in New Orleans. Just deal with it. It's really not that big of a deal. So Kelley goes, "I'm figuring something out. It's a concept about maturity." And I guess this is her calling Julie immature because she's excited about this parade.
Right.
But Danny also seems excited about the parade.
Right. It's, all of it was for the most part, she's just withdrawn herself when she doesn't want to be involved in whatever is going on. But today she decided, no, I'm going to let everybody know that I'm fucking miserable.
Yes.
And that's what these comments were. Yeah, it wasn't like I'm keeping this to myself. This is like, no, this is it. I'm voicing how I'm feeling, but not directly. Like, I'm a party pooper. I hate fun. I dropped out of elementary school because recess was too much fun. Like, okay, Kelley.
Yeah, listen, I get like this sometimes. I get it. I am a homebody. I'm most of the time introverted. It takes me a lot to get in the mode of wanting to be like, okay, we're going to go out and we're going to go do this thing and it's a big event and it's going to be fun. And sometimes I've caught myself being like, meh, and complaining, but I hear myself and I'm like, I got to get it together. I can't be like this. I'm bringing everybody else down. We all get like that, but like, we got to let's just zip it. We don't need to ruin everybody else's time and rain on a parade here. And that's what Kelley is doing.
A literal parade.
So they get to brunch. I didn't write the name of the place down, but I don't think it matters. But it looks like a museum inside.
Yeah.
It's kind of odd. I mean, it's like nice, but everyone's like, "It's beautiful." And I'm like, is it though? I mean, it's like nice. It's cool.
I think it's probably because it's like old French stuff that like you don't get to see every day. That was my impression of it, was like, oh, this looks like it could be a room in the White House.
Yeah, which to me, I'm like, is that beautiful? I don't know. But Tokyo said, as an artist, this room is beautiful. Then we're getting them eating. Everybody's having a good time together. Jamie said he wants to play Nerf War in the house. Kelley's like, love that you guys want to do that together. It'll be fun for you. And Jamie says, it'll be fun for you. And she's like, no, that'll be fun for you. Like, fun for you.
Again,
and specifically,
why are you saying this, Kelley? Like, why? Just keep it to yourself.
It's almost like people have different ideas of what's fun. And you don't have to participate if you don't want to, but like, don't be rude about it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
She was,
and that's pretty much it from
yum.
Yucking a lot of yum. That's really it for like the table. And then she stays back and she like looks out the window and we get very dramatic moments from her. And she's kind of having like a meltdown on the way back.
Mm-hmm.
Feels uneasy. As of today, she feels like she's done. This is the day that put it over the edge for her, basically. And she wants to leave.
My question is, because we've already had some confirmation that things are not being shown in chronological order here.
Yeah.
That where do you think this falls in the grand scheme of 2 weeks? Because this is the end of episode 7. Kelley, I'm assuming she leaves next episode based off the preview and like not seeing her at like their final dinner or whatever. I counted those glasses being cheers multiple times. That it seems like she leaves. So why are you leaving if there's like a day left? Which makes me think like, did she leave with a week left and they like tried to fill all this content in? But they really got through everything unless there's so much stuff that got left on the cutting room floor because Kelley wasn't in it. Like, so that just makes me ask a lot of questions about the timeline of all this. And I'm hoping that someone spills and we see it on like the sub or something, because I'm left very confused at when did this event happen in the calendar of their 2 weeks, I guess.
I would also like to know that because again, for me, it does not make sense to me if you're on the last day or two to not just stick it out. You're getting paid a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Just stick it out. You're with people that you really like. You're with Melissa and Danny. You're in the room with them. It's a safe space for you. Nothing's going on in that room, like with cameras or anything that you really need to necessarily worry about. So like, unless there's something that we really are not seeing, I'm not getting it.
They're not like forcing her to do everything. She stayed out of a majority of the times they've left the house. Like she really could just hibernate up in her room and do the bare minimum and it would be fine. Like, I don't know. I just don't get it. And so that's what makes me think that it happened like a week in and they really had to figure out how to make all of this happen. I don't know. I'm very confused because otherwise, like to leave with anything like I would say 3 days or less makes no sense to me.
Agreed. Even 4 days. It's like you've been here for so long already. Just stick out 4 days and you're done. Then you get to go home. You get to go back to your normal life. You can say, I stuck it through. I did it.
And look at this paycheck.
Exactly. I think for someone like Tokyo, who's been through it in the beginning of this, dealing with Julie and her microaggressions and her racism, he stuck through and seems like they're still in the same room also, by the way.
Yeah, I noticed that.
I guess he didn't change
but again,
rooms.
We don't know what I had that exact thought, Katie. I was like, oh, he's like that bed is still in the same position as his original one. However, when did he actually want to leave? Because the other thing is, if you think about it, Kelley, I mean, I know it seemed like it was pretty early on, but like Kelley didn't go out to the drag race thing or not drag race. That's a show. What you know what I'm trying to say. And is that some like editing magic to make it seem like that happened earlier on while Kelley was there? And actually it was after she left. Like I'm assuming Kelley was there because they implied like she stayed home and she was there for conversations afterwards. But I don't trust anything anymore. My trust levels are at an all-time low right now.
I know it is. It's very strange. It's very strange. But for someone like a Tokyo, someone like a Melissa, who have had to carry a lot of the emotional baggage, mental baggage, speak for, people of color and I just don't understand how Kelley has a Danny who has to speak for the LGBTQ community plus community and really defend himself and his entire community and his sexuality to someone who is against it because of religious reasons. They are all still there. And Kelly's just like, I'm gonna go
Yeah.
just because Julie makes me feel uncomfortable. Like, I just don't, I don't see the reason, and I don't understand the need to give someone like Julie that power. Like, just
Yeah,
ignore her.
that's
She's
true.
not worth it.
Yeah. No, I agree. But I mean, we have to wait till next week to see her leave, but we also have to wait till next week for like the last episode. That's sad. I looked
I'm very
today, I was
sad.
like, maybe it's actually longer. Maybe there's more episodes because especially with like Kelly leaving in the last episode just didn't make sense to me. So I searched like 4 or 5 different websites hoping that it said it was longer than 8 episodes and it's 8.
Yeah. It seems like next week is our final week. We get our final dinner. I'm sad. I'm really gonna miss them. I look forward to the show every single week. I'm not ready for it to be over. But it's gonna be over next week. And I'm not ready. I'm not ready for it. I'm not ready to let these people go.
No, I'm hoping that some of them have had a positive enough experience that they'll not so much remain in the spotlight, but at least like have more of a presence. Whether it's like even just following like Melissa on Twitter and stuff, like she cracks me up and that type of thing, and not try to like go so far underground this time that we still like get bits and pieces of them.
Yes, totally. I agree. And I'm just happy that, I have Tokyo to follow now on Instagram, and these people are back in my life. As much as they're back in each other's lives, they're back in my life. And I'm really happy about that.
And that's what genuinely matters.
It is what genuinely matters. It is. It is. Even if I want more of the show for the rest of my life. But it's okay. Kari, any final thoughts on this episode?
I think I've said everything I need to say.
Me too. So in that case, where can everybody find you on these internet streets?
I am on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Venmo, KGD26. And I don't know, nothing like too exciting happening on my internet fronts, I guess. Like, I don't think I've really been tweeting much, but I can tell you that I am still all over the place on Silent Podcasts, where the weekly Real Housewives coverage. If you're interested in Katie and I just having like a personality episode, then listen to this week's one, because we had one show to cover and we went off topic quite a few times. But it was fun. It was funny. So if that interests you, if you like hearing us banter, then that's meant for you. Cool Water Show. Follow us on Twitter at that exactly, at Cool Water Show. And then Thursday's coverage of the challenge on TJ Hates Quitters is happening. I have 2 brand new guests tomorrow. I don't want to spoil it just yet, but we've got new people in the chairs and talking all things challenge. That's, again, TJ Hates Quitters. The circle ended. However, we have at least one post-game interview with Alex, who played as Nathan. And we also have his girlfriend coming on because she was super awesome to me and Josie. She like DM'd us, or she DM'd Josie, and she's like, thank you so much for like the coverage you guys did. And you guys gave like a really fair assessment of his game, like most other podcasts didn't. And like, we told Alex, like, hey, we would love to have you on, but we're not going to talk to you without your girlfriend. So we're having both of them on, which I think will be fun. I think it'll be a different dynamic than like all the other post-game interviews he's done. So anything to keep things fresh. And that's over on Alert. So that's going to be happening this Monday. So we'll definitely have it up soon after. So if you watch The Circle, hopefully we can also like get some more players based off of a good recommendation from him about us. So that's where I'm at. I have I've got 2 like cool projects coming up. I'm not ready to announce one of them yet. I'm not ready to announce either of them yet, but one of them is going to involve TikTok, which is fun. So if you have TikTok, be ready to follow Silent Podcast soon, because I'm going to be doing some stuff on there. And that's it. Okay, bye, Katie. Go ahead.
Okay, well,
Katie, what do you do?
You can find, I do some things. You can find me on Twitter at RealSlimKatie. I'm also there on Instagram. I don't do a lot on Instagram. You guys hear me say that every week, but you're still more than welcome to follow if you would like to. You can also find me on Twitch. So I'm at twitch.tv/realsimkatie with an underscore at the end. Been putting some more time into streaming lately. I kind of not fell off a little bit, but I've been focusing a lot on other things, but really trying to get back into a good swing of things. So been there a lot over the past couple of weeks, and we talk about a lot of things there. I'm not like a shoot yourself in the face gamer or anything like that. I'm a very cozy, play a lot of Stardew Valley, I don't know, you know what I mean? First person shooters, whatever. That's not the vibe. I don't know if that's even a game, but we play games. I played a little Pokemon yesterday, had some fun, just hanging out with the chat and chatting all things TV and all that kind of stuff. So feel free, come by, drop a follow. It's free. You don't have to pay anything to do that. So whatever, if that's your vibe, feel free to join me over there. You can also find me in a few other places on Silent Podcasts. So 2 weeks ago or so, or a little over a week ago, we did some Big Brother Canada 10 post-season coverage. We had a really great interview with Kevin Jacobs, the winner of Big Brother Canada Season 10. He was super gracious and wonderful with his time, and we had a really great conversation with him. So you can find that on YouTube and on anywhere you listen to your podcasts. We also on Monday had a postseason interview with my personal favorite from the season, Herman, first juror of the season. He was hilarious. He gave us also a really, really great interview. Was also super generous with his time. He opened up with a dance for us. It was a great time. Josie Ann and I interviewed him together, and we laughed. It was great. He's very funny. So feel free to check that out. That's also anywhere you listen to your podcasts and on YouTube. We just recorded our second episode of The High Ground, which is our Obi-Wan Kenobi recap show, if you are a Star Wars fan. So myself, Naomi, and Isaiah are covering this season. I think it's only one season long of Obi-Wan Kenobi here on Silent Podcasts. It's incredible. This week's episode came out today. It changed my life. Maybe it might have changed my life. I'm going to say that. I think it was absolutely incredible. I can't stop thinking about it. I had the chills for the whole entire second half of the episode. Still have the chills if I think about it. It was so good. So definitely check out our coverage of that if that's a show that you're watching. If not, you should be watching it because it's great. And you can find me talking all things Real Housewives with Kari on the Cool Water Show, as Kari already mentioned. So I won't go too deep there, but also anywhere where you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. So thank you guys so much for listening. You can also find Silent Podcasts all over the place on social media these days. Thank you, Kari. I was just about to do it. You can follow us on Twitch at Silent Podcasts. You can follow us on YouTube at Silent Podcasts. You can also follow us on Twitter at Silent_Podcasts, where you will see alerts and all of those other great things about what we're covering, when we're going live, when we're posting episodes. So check us out there. Also, if you would like to, we would really appreciate it if you would give us a review on iTunes or Spotify or wherever it is that you leave reviews for podcasts these days. It helps us get discovered. It would be really, really great if you just drop a star rating. It just is very helpful in the algorithm and all of that kind of stuff. So if you like what you hear, even if you don't, if you have some suggestions, you can still rate us 5 stars with the suggestions in your review. That won't hurt us. Just a suggestion. Mm-hmm. So please feel free to do that if you have the time. No pressure. Other than that, that's all we have for you tonight. I know we just gave a lot of word vomit to you and asked you to follow and do a lot of things. So we appreciate you. Appreciate you all for being in the YouTube live chat. Again, really love interacting with you guys as we record. This is super, super fun. We're really going to miss this once the season is over. Thank you again. And we will talk to you next week for the finale. We're so sad. Yeah, I know. It doesn't feel like it's real. Very upsetting. Okay. Bye, everybody. Thank you. Have a great rest of your week. Depending on when you listen to this. I mean, have a great rest of your week anytime. Every time you listen to this, have a great rest of your week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.